My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The bank message said, account access removed. That's when I knew something was wrong. I was standing in my kitchen, the kettle screaming on the stove, steam fogging up the window. When my phone buzzed against the counter like it was trying to wake me from a dream, I didn't want to leave. For a second, I ignored it, thinking it was another shopping alert or a useless promotion, something I could swipe away while I poured tea, and went back to pretending everything in my life was still normal. But something in my chest tightened before I even touched the screen. A quiet warning that felt like a cold hand closing around my heart. I picked up the phone. The screen glowed too bright in the dim kitchen. I read the message once, then again, then a third time, slower, as if the words might change if I stared at them long enough. Account access removed. Not temporarily blocked. Not suspicious activity. Removed. I felt my knees weaken. I leaned against the counter, gripping its edge as if the floor had shifted beneath me. That account was mine. My savings. My security. The little cushion I had built over 30 years of teaching, skipping vacations, saying no to things I wanted so my family could have what they needed. It wasn't just money. It was proof that I mattered, that I had contributed something real to this family. I refreshed the app. Again, the screen blinked and returned to the same words. Removed. My heart began to race, each beat louder than the last. I opened my email, then my messages, searching for some explanation. A fraud alert. A call. Anything. There was nothing. Only silence. The kind of silence that feels deliberate, like someone chose not to tell you the truth. My phone buzzed again, this time with a familiar chime. The family WhatsApp group. I hesitated before opening it. That group had been strangely quiet for days, and now suddenly there were dozens of new messages stacked on top of each other, like a dam had burst. I scrolled up slowly, my fingers stiff. There were laughing emojis, heart stickers. Someone had written, finally. Another had replied, so happy for you both. Someone shared a short video. My breath caught in my throat. I tapped it. The screen filled with music, bright lights, and a crowd of smiling faces. And then I saw him, my son, Daniel, standing tall, dressed in a cream sherwani, his arm wrapped around a woman in a red bridal dress. They were laughing, leaning into each other, looking like the happiest people in the world. Married. Yesterday. The room seemed to tilt. I felt dizzy, like I had stood up too fast, except I hadn't moved at all. My hand started to shake so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I stared at the screen, watching them walk down a decorated aisle, while everyone around them clapped and cheered. Everyone. Except me. I scrolled back up through the messages, my chest growing tighter with each name I recognized. My sisters, my cousins, old neighbors, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. They all knew. They were all congratulating him. They were all part of a moment I was never invited to share. I was the only one who didn't know. I felt something tear inside me, not loudly, not all at once, but quietly, like fabric ripping in slow motion. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. My body felt numb, like it was trying to protect me from the full weight of what was happening. Why was I the last to know? I whispered to the empty kitchen. The kettle had stopped screaming. The house was too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you hear your own breathing, your own heartbeat, your own thoughts turning against you. My phone buzzed again. A message from Daniel. Mom, we'll talk later. Later. That single word felt heavier than all the others. Later meant not now. Later meant not important enough. Later meant he had already decided when I deserved to be included in his life. I lowered myself into a chair, my legs trembling, and held the phone in both hands like it might disappear if I let go. My mind kept replaying the video. His smile, the way he looked so sure, so complete, as if he hadn't left anything behind. As if he hadn't left me behind. I heard the front door open. My husband, Rafiq, walked in, still wearing his work jacket, his face tired. He stopped when he saw me sitting there, pale and shaking. What's wrong? He asked, setting down his bag. I didn't speak. I just held out my phone. He took it, watched the video, and for a moment I saw something cross his face. Not shock, not confusion, guilt. It was there for just a second, but I saw it. Clear as day. You knew. I asked softly. He looked away, suddenly very interested in the floor. It just happened, he said. The words felt rehearsed. Empty. That's when I realized I thought I was the scene. Not the mother of the groom. Not family. Just the awkward problem they had decided to avoid. I stood up so quickly the chair scraped loudly against the floor. My hands were clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms. Our son got married, I said, my voice shaking, and you knew. He didn't answer. The silence between us was heavier than any argument could have been. Before I could say anything else, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unknown number. Mrs. May, please confirm your identity. We need to discuss the property transfer. Property? My stomach dropped. What property? I typed back with shaking fingers. The reply came almost instantly. The farmhouse. Ownership has been updated. Updated. Without me. The room felt smaller, like the walls were moving closer. I looked at Rafiq, who had stepped into the hallway to answer his ringing phone. His voice was low, urgent. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. I already knew. This wasn't just a wedding. This was a plan, and I was never meant to see it coming. I pressed my hand to my chest, trying to steady my breathing. My mind raced with questions that had no answers yet. Who had decided this? When did it start? How long had they been lying to me? I thought of all the years I had stayed quiet to keep the peace. All the times I had swallowed my hurt, told myself it was nothing, that I was being too sensitive, too emotional. I thought of the nights I stayed awake worrying about everyone else while no one seemed to notice I was breaking. And now, in a single morning, I had lost my son, my money, and my place in this family. I stared at the dark screen of my phone, my reflection faint and tired, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely erased. But deep inside, beneath the shock and the pain, something else began to stir. A quiet, dangerous thought. If they thought I would disappear without a fight, they were wrong. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The digital lock blinked red. Access denied. For a moment, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. I stood there right in front of the farmhouse gates, my hand hovering over the keypad, waiting for the familiar green light that had always welcomed me home. But the screen glowed red again, cold and unforgiving, like it didn't recognize me anymore. I tried the code once more, slowly this time, pressing each number as if care alone could convince the system to remember me. The tiny screen paused, then flashed the same message. Access denied. My chest tightened. I stepped back, staring at the tall black gates, the ones Rafiq and I had chosen together years ago when we decided to build this place as our retirement dream. The house behind them was quiet, sunlight reflecting off the windows, looking exactly the same as it always had. And yet, somehow it was no longer mine. My phone vibrated in my hand. Daniel, Mom, don't come. We need space. Space. From my own home. I stared at the message, my vision blurring. I typed back, then erased it. Typed again, then erased it again. There were too many things I wanted to say, and no words that felt right. In the end, I wrote nothing. I walked up to the gate and pressed the doorbell camera. A soft chime echoed from inside, followed by the familiar click of the screen lighting up. For a second, I saw only the empty porch. Then she appeared. Zara, my daughter-in-law. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless, like she had known someone important would be watching. She tilted her head slightly, eyes narrowing when she recognized me. We're busy, she said coldly. You should have called. I felt my throat tighten. I'm standing at my own door, I whispered. She smiled. Not kindly, not apologetically. That's not your house anymore. The screen went dark. I stood there, my hand still raised, as if I could reach through the camera and grab back everything that had just been taken from me. The air felt heavier, harder to breathe. I wanted to scream, to bang on the gates, to demand answers. But I didn't. I stayed still, because part of me was afraid of what would happen if I let the pain escape. I turned and walked back to my car, each step feeling like I was leaving a piece of myself behind. The drive home was a blur. Traffic lights, passing faces, the radio playing a cheerful song that felt cruelly out of place. I kept replaying Zara's words in my head. Not your house anymore. When I reached our old city home, Rafiq's car was already in the driveway. I sat there for a moment, staring at the front door, wondering when it had stopped feeling like a safe place. When I finally went inside, he was in the living room, pretending to watch the news. They locked me out, I said quietly. He didn't look at me. They said the farmhouse isn't mine. Still nothing. I walked closer, standing in front of the television. Say something, I begged. He sighed and rubbed his face. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Harder? For who? Did you sign something? I asked. His eyes flickered away again. That was my answer. I felt a wave of anger rise inside me, but it was tangled with sadness, with disbelief. After everything I sacrificed, I said softly, you did this without even telling me. He stood up, suddenly defensive. It's for the family. You wouldn't understand. I laughed, a bitter sound that surprised even me. I am the family. He said nothing. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the gate, the red light, Zara's smile. I kept thinking about all the years I had stayed quiet to keep the peace, all the times I had chosen them over myself. In the early hours of the morning, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Mrs. May, this is Mr. Hassan from the legal office. Please come in today regarding the property documents. My heart pounded. I replied that I would be there. The office smelled of paper and coffee. The walls were lined with framed certificates and family photos that felt strangely out of place. Mr. Hassan sat across from me, his expression serious. He slid a folder across the desk. This is the updated deed for the farmhouse. I opened it with trembling hands. My name was gone. Replaced. This isn't right, I whispered. I never agreed to this. He hesitated. Your husband authorized it. There is a digital signature. Digital? I stared at the signature. It looked like mine, but it wasn't. My chest felt tight, my head spinning. Someone signed for me, I said. He looked uncomfortable. If you believe there is fraud, you can contest it. Contest. The word echoed in my mind. For years, I had avoided conflict, telling myself it wasn't worth it. But now, everything I had built was being erased. On my way out, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a WhatsApp voice note from my little grandson. Nana, Daddy said don't tell you, but he took papers from your room. My heart stopped. I listened to it again, and again. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was theft, and I was done staying silent. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The lawyer's office felt colder than it should have, not because of the air conditioner, but because of the silence. The kind of silence that makes you feel small, like you don't belong there. I sat in the chair across from Mr. Hassan, my hands folded in my lap, my heart still pounding from the voice note my grandson had sent me the night before. Daddy took papers from your room. Those words kept echoing in my head, refusing to let me rest. I had barely slept, replaying them over and over, trying to understand how my own child could steal from me. Not money, not jewelry, but my voice, my authority, my right to decide what happens to my life. Mr. Hassan cleared his throat and opened the folder in front of him. The sound of the paper felt too loud in the quiet room. He slid a stack of documents across the desk toward me. This is the digital will and property authorization, he said gently. It was filed 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. I picked up the papers, my fingers trembling. My name was printed at the top, bold and official. Below, it was a signature that looked like mine. The curves, the loops, even the little flick at the end. But it wasn't mine. I never signed this, I whispered. Mr. Hassan paused. His eyes softened. Mrs. May, digital signatures can be authorized through linked devices. According to the record, this was approved from your tablet. My tablet. I felt dizzy. That tablet hasn't left my bedroom, I said. I don't even know the password anymore. Daniel changed it months ago when he said it was too complicated for me. Mr. Hassan's expression shifted, just slightly. Concern. Suspicion. Do you believe someone used your device without permission? He asked. I thought of the voice note. of my grandson's small, uncertain voice, of the way Daniel had avoided my eyes when I asked him about the farmhouse. Yes, I said. I know someone did. He leaned back in his chair. If that's the case, you have the right to contest this will. But I must warn you, it will create conflict within your family. Conflict. I almost laughed, as if what they had done to me wasn't already a war. I'm not afraid of conflict anymore, I said quietly. I'm afraid of disappearing. He nodded and began explaining the process. Court filings, evidence, witnesses. It all felt overwhelming. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something close to clarity. This wasn't just about property. It was about my life, my dignity. When I left the office, the sun felt too bright, the city too loud. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Mom, why are you doing this? He wrote. You're tearing the family apart. Tearing the family apart. I stared at the message, my chest aching. I typed, then deleted, then typed again. I didn't raise you like this, I finally wrote. I just want the truth. He didn't reply. That evening, Rafi came home late. He didn't speak at first, just walked past me like I was a stranger. I followed him into the bedroom. Did you know Daniel took papers from my room? I asked. He froze. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he sighed. He needed them. Needed them. For what? I demanded. To protect the family, he said weakly. I felt tears burn in my eyes. From who? Me. He looked away again. That night, I cried silently into my pillow, not wanting him to hear. I thought about all the years I had stayed quiet, telling myself it was for love, for peace. But now I saw the truth. My silence had taught them I would accept anything. The next morning, I returned to Mr. Hassan's office with a small bag of evidence. Old documents, bank statements, photos of my original signatures. He examined them carefully. This will help, he said. But we also need proof of access to your devices. I remembered something. The smart doorbell footage. It recorded every time someone entered my room when I wasn't home. I went back and checked. There he was, Daniel, standing in my doorway, holding my tablet. I felt sick. I sent the clip to Mr. Hassan. This changes everything, he replied. That evening, the family group chat went quiet. No more emojis. No more congratulations. Just silence. The kind that feels like the calm before a storm. Later that night, my phone rang. It was Daniel. Mom, let's talk, he said, his voice tense. Now you want to talk, I replied softly. He hesitated. Zara is upset. She says you're humiliating us. Humiliating. I closed my eyes. That's when I realized, I thought, they weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry I found out. I'm not angry, I said quietly. I'm just hurt you didn't think of me. He said nothing. When the call ended, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The fear was still there, but so was something else. Resolve. Because I knew now. This was only the beginning. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The first thing I heard that morning was my phone buzzing on the bedside table. It was still dark outside, the kind of quiet hour when the world feels fragile and unfinished. For a second, I didn't move. My body felt heavy, like I had been carrying stones in my chest all night. Then the phone vibrated again, longer this time, and I knew I couldn't ignore it. A WhatsApp notification. From my grandson. My heart tightened immediately. He was only 9. Too young to be tangled in secrets. Too innocent to understand the weight of what he was saying. I opened the message, my fingers shaking. It was a voice note. I pressed play. Nana, Daddy said don't tell you. But he took papers from your room. He said you won't understand. I'm sorry, Nana. His small voice cracked at the end, like he was afraid he had done something wrong just by telling me the truth. I closed my eyes, my chest burning. I listened again, and again. Each time, the words sank deeper. He took papers from your room. I sat up slowly, my heart racing, my mind spinning. I felt sick, like the ground beneath me had disappeared. I had already suspected it, but hearing it from my grandson made it real. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal. I held the phone against my chest and whispered, after everything I sacrificed, Tears rolled down my cheeks, silent and heavy. I didn't wipe them away. I let them fall. For years, I had stayed quiet to keep the peace. I had told myself it was my duty as a mother, as a wife, to hold the family together even when it hurt. But now, my silence felt like a cage. I replayed the voice note once more, then saved it carefully, like it was something fragile and priceless. Because it was. It was the truth. When I walked into the kitchen, Rafik was already there, drinking tea. He looked at me briefly, then away. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "Did you?" I replied softly. He said nothing. I poured myself a cup of tea, my hands shaking so badly I nearly spilled it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Daniel. "Mom, please stop this," he wrote. "You're embarrassing us." Embarrassing. That word felt like a slap. I stared at the screen, my vision blurring. For a moment, I imagined what they were saying about me behind closed doors. That I was unstable, that I was dramatic, that I didn't understand how things worked anymore. Maybe that's what they needed to believe, to justify what they had done. I typed slowly. "I'm not trying to embarrass you. I just want my life back." He didn't reply. Later that afternoon, I went to Mr. Hassan's office again. My hands were still trembling as I played the voice note for him. He listened carefully, his face serious. "This is important," he said. "It shows intent. It shows knowledge." He asked me to forward it to him. When I did, I felt this strange mix of guilt and relief, like I was betraying my own son by telling the truth about him. But then I remembered the gate, the red light, Zara's smile. I reminded myself why I was doing this. On my way home, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Zara. "Why are you doing this to us?" she wrote. "You're ruining our happiness." Our happiness. As if my pain was just an inconvenience. I didn't reply. That evening, I checked the smart doorbell footage like Mr. Hassan had suggested. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the recordings from the past few weeks. There he was, Daniel, standing in my doorway, holding my tablet. I felt my knees weaken. I sank onto the bed, staring at the screen. It was one thing to suspect him. It was another to see it with my own eyes. I saved the clip. That night, the family group chat came alive again. But this time, the messages weren't cheerful. "What is going on? Why is Nana doing this? Can someone explain?" I watched silently. Then Daniel wrote, "Mom, please. Let's talk in person." I closed my eyes. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. Because now I had the truth. And they couldn't take that from me. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. I didn't go looking for the truth. I only wanted answers. That was the lie I kept telling myself as I sat alone in my bedroom, staring at the small white box on my nightstand. The logo of the DNA testing company was printed neatly on the lid, promising clarity and connection. A week earlier, I had ordered it out of desperation, not fully understanding why. Maybe I hoped it would distract me from everything else. Maybe I just needed something, anything, that felt like it was still under my control. The house was quiet, but not the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the kind that made every sound feel too loud. The ticking of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator. Even my own breathing felt like it was echoing off the walls. I picked up the box and turned it over in my hands. It felt heavier than it should have, like it was carrying more than just a test. When I finally opened it, my hands were shaking. I followed the instructions slowly, carefully, as if moving too fast might break something. When I sealed the sample and placed it back in the box, I felt a strange sense of finality, like I had just crossed an invisible line. I mailed it the next morning. Days passed, then a week. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped. But the messages were always from someone else. My sister, a neighbor, even Zara once, asking if we could clear the air. I ignored them all. Then, late one night, the alert came. New DNA match found. I stared at the screen, my stomach tightening. I tapped the notification, expecting to see a distant cousin or some forgotten branch of the family tree. Instead, I saw a name I didn't recognize. A child, listed as a close relative. Too close to be a coincidence. My vision blurred. I scrolled through the details, my hands trembling. The percentage was high. High enough that there was only one possible explanation. This child was connected to my husband. My heart pounded in my ears as I tried to make sense of it. I refreshed the app, hoping it was a mistake. It wasn't. A secret child. A hidden life. I felt like the ground had disappeared beneath me. Memories began flooding back. Late nights at work. Sudden trips. Excuses that never quite added up. I had trusted him. I had believed every word. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling my world collapse in slow motion. When Rafiq came home, I was still sitting on the bed, the phone in my hand. He stopped when he saw my face. "What's wrong?" he asked. I held up the screen. His eyes widened. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he sighed. "I was going to tell you," he whispered. That was the moment my heart broke completely. "Say next chapter when you're ready for chapter 6, the court message." "Yes, perfect. Here is chapter 6, full 1,500 plus words, where Nana May finally gains power and the family begins to panic. Chapter 6, the court message, full 1,500 plus words. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The court message arrived at 9:17 in the morning, just as I was folding the laundry in the living room. The sunlight was pouring through the curtains, making the dust in the air look almost beautiful, like tiny stars floating around me. For a moment, everything felt normal, almost peaceful, and then my phone vibrated. I nearly ignored it. After everything that had happened, the farmhouse, the will, the DNA shock, I had started to dread the sound of notifications. Every buzz felt like another door slamming shut. But something in my chest told me this one was different. I picked up the phone. "You have been listed as a party in a property and inheritance dispute. Please confirm receipt of this notice." My hands froze mid-fold. The shirt slipped from my fingers and fell to the floor. I stared at the screen, reading the message again and again, trying to understand what it meant. Court. Inheritance. Dispute. It was real now. No more whispers. No more secret signatures. No more pretending nothing was wrong. The truth was stepping out into the open, and there was no way to hide from it anymore. I sank onto the couch, my heart pounding. Part of me was terrified, but another part, quiet, steady, felt something else. Relief, because for the first time, someone official had seen what was happening to me. Someone had acknowledged that I existed, that my voice mattered. My phone buzzed again. "Daniel." "Mom, what did you do?" he wrote. "Why is there a court notice?" I stared at the message, then slowly typed back. I told the truth. He didn't reply. Minutes later, Zara called. I let it ring twice before answering. "Are you happy now?" she snapped. "You've dragged us into court. Everyone is talking. Talking." I closed my eyes. "I didn't start this," I said softly. "I just refused to stay quiet." She laughed bitterly. "You're acting like a victim." That's when I realized they still didn't see me. They still thought I would back down. The family group chat exploded that afternoon. Messages flew in one after another, demanding explanations, blaming me, telling me to stop. I read them all in silence. Then I left the chat. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The court message arrived at 9:17 in the morning, just as I was folding the laundry in the living room. The sunlight was pouring through the curtains, making the dust in the air look almost beautiful, like tiny stars floating around me. For a moment, everything felt normal, almost peaceful, and then my phone vibrated. I nearly ignored it. After everything that had happened, the farmhouse, the will, the DNA shock, I had started to dread the sound of notifications. Every buzz felt like another door slamming shut. But something in my chest told me this one was different. I picked up the phone. "You have been listed as a party in a property and inheritance dispute. Please confirm receipt of this notice." My hands froze mid-fold. The shirt slipped from my fingers and fell to the floor. I stared at the screen, reading the message again and again, trying to understand what it meant. Court. Inheritance. Dispute. It was real now. No more whispers. No more secret signatures. No more pretending nothing was wrong. The truth was stepping out into the open, and there was no way to hide from it anymore. I sank onto the couch, my heart pounding. Part of me was terrified, but another part, quiet, steady, felt something else. Relief, because for the first time, someone official had seen what was happening to me. Someone had acknowledged that I existed, that my voice mattered. My phone buzzed again. Daniel. Mom, what did you do? He wrote. Why is there a court notice? I stared at the message, then slowly typed back. I told the truth. He didn't reply. Minutes later, Zara called. I let it ring twice before answering. Are you happy now? She snapped. You've dragged us into court. Everyone is talking. Talking. I closed my eyes. I didn't start this, I said softly. I just refused to stay quiet. She laughed bitterly. You're acting like a victim. That's when I realized they still didn't see me. They still thought I would back down. The family group chat exploded that afternoon. Messages flew in one after another, demanding explanations, blaming me, telling me to stop. I read them all in silence. Then I left the chat. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful kind that settles gently over a room, but the sharp, unnatural quiet that comes when people stop talking because they're watching something happen. I was sitting in the living room, staring at the wall, when my phone buzzed again and again on the coffee table. At first, I ignored it. I had grown tired of the sound, tired of the way every vibration seemed to carry bad news. But when the screen lit up for the fourth time, I finally reached for it. A message from my neighbor, Salma. Are you okay? She wrote. Before I could reply, another message arrived. Please tell me this isn't true. My heart began to pound. I opened the social media app, my fingers shaking as if they already knew what I was about to see. There she was, Zara, live. Her face filled the screen, perfectly framed, tears glistening in her eyes. Soft music played in the background, the kind people use to make themselves look vulnerable. Hundreds of viewers were watching. The comments were flying faster than I could read them. She looks broken. Poor girl. How could a mother-in-law do this? I felt sick. Zara sniffed and wiped her eyes. I never wanted to do this publicly, she said, her voice trembling. But I feel like I have no choice. Nana May has been attacking our family, spreading lies, trying to destroy our marriage. We just want peace. Lies. My hands began to shake so badly I nearly dropped the phone. She spoke slowly, carefully, choosing every word to make herself sound innocent. She said I was unstable, that I was confused, that I didn't understand modern ways. She said I was trying to take what didn't belong to me. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. The comments were cruel. She's toxic. Cut her off. She should be ashamed. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I sat there, listening, watching my life being rewritten in front of strangers. Then something inside me shifted. I stood up, walked to my room, and opened the folder on my phone. The voice note, the doorbell footage, the forged documents, the DNA results. My hands were steady now. I created my own post and told the truth. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. I didn't realize how quiet the house could feel until the moment it started to collapse. Not physically, of course. The walls, the floors, the furniture were all intact, but everything I thought was safe, everything I had trusted, began to crumble around me. It started that morning when my phone buzzed relentlessly. Notifications, emails, messages from unknown numbers, each one carrying the same message. Have you seen the live stream? Is this true? We need the documents. I picked up the first one and opened it. My heart skipped a beat. The social media feed had exploded overnight. People were commenting, sharing, speculating. The live stream from Zara had gone viral. Thousands of people were watching now. Her version of events, the story she had crafted about me being unstable and toxic, was spreading like wildfire. I felt a lump rise in my throat. A wave of humiliation swept over me, a familiar feeling I had spent decades suppressing. I thought about my family's friends, my neighbors, the people who had respected me, relied on me, and even admired me for years. Would they believe her lies? Would they turn against me too? I pressed my phone to my ear and dialed Mr. Hassan. Nana. Slow down, he said when he answered. I've seen it. But you have evidence. You have everything you need. I swallowed hard. But they're destroying me publicly. They're making me the villain, Hassan. That's the point where we turn the tables, he replied. You're not just defending yourself. You're exposing them. The documents, the voice note, the DNA results, they prove everything. They can't spin the truth. I nodded slowly, even though he couldn't see me. Something inside me hardened. The fear and the humiliation that had gripped me for weeks began to transform into clarity. I wasn't going to be silenced anymore. I opened the folder of evidence and began methodically posting pieces, carefully, one by one. First, the voice note from my grandson. I captioned it simply, "The truth has a voice." Then, the smart doorbell footage of Daniel taking my tablet. The forged property documents. Finally, the DNA test results revealing my husband's secret child. With each post, the storm inside me grew calmer. The power was shifting. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the one holding the facts. By mid-afternoon, the consequences were immediate. The family group chat erupted. Messages from Daniel, Zara, my husband, all frantic, defensive, panicked. "Mom, stop this," Daniel wrote. "You're going to ruin everything." Zara screamed. "You don't understand," Rafiq pleaded. I read their messages silently. I didn't reply. I let them stew in the panic they had created. For the first time in weeks, I felt vindicated. The social media responses poured in too. Comments shifted from sympathy for Zara to outrage at the deception. Why didn't anyone tell Nana May? This family lied to her for years. She has every right to expose this. People were seeing the truth. People were witnessing my dignity. And then it happened. Daniel called. "Mom, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. "You took my papers, forged my signature, and tried to erase me. You made your choices." There was silence on the other end. Then a shaky, small voice. I didn't know it would get this far." "I did," I said softly. "But you needed to learn the consequences." He didn't argue. He couldn't. Later that evening, Rafiq confronted me in the kitchen. His eyes were red, and he looked smaller than he had in years. "Nana, please," he said. "You're destroying the family. You're humiliating us." I stared at him calmly. I've been humiliated for weeks. The gates, the locked accounts, the lies, the secret child. And now, I'm finally visible. I am not the problem here. He opened his mouth, then closed it. The truth had no place for excuses anymore. By the next morning, the farmhouse doors that had been locked against me for weeks suddenly felt lighter. The bank froze some of Daniel's transactions temporarily, pending an investigation into the forged signatures. Lawyers began calling. Mr. Hassan confirmed that the evidence I had provided was overwhelming. The power reversal was complete. The family's confidence shattered. Daniel stopped texting. Zara stopped posting. Rafiq avoided my gaze. Even my grandson, who had been scared to speak, came to me quietly that afternoon. "Nana." "I didn't know," he whispered. I hugged him tight, my tears falling freely. Not from humiliation, not from fear, but from release, from knowing that at least someone in my family could now see the truth clearly. But even as the house grew quieter, even as the immediate crisis settled in, a new question hovered over everything. The secret child. How deep did this go? How long had my husband been living a double life? And what other lies were waiting to surface? I realized then that this collapse, this humiliation and revelation, was only the beginning. The family may have crumbled in the immediate storm, but the aftershocks were far from over. I sat in my living room that night, the phone beside me, the documents neatly organized on the table, and for the first time in years, I felt a strange calm. Not because everything was resolved, not because the betrayal was gone, but because I had reclaimed myself. The humiliation had turned into power. The lies had turned into leverage. And the family that thought they could erase me, now they had to reckon with me. As I turned off the lights, my phone buzzed one final time that night. An unknown number. A lawyer. A court. A summons. The storm wasn't over. And I smiled, quietly knowing I was ready. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. I never thought the day would come when I would walk into a room and feel the power shift beneath my feet. Not the physical kind, not the literal space, but the invisible weight of authority, truth, and control. For weeks, I had been pushed aside, excluded, humiliated, locked out of my own house, erased from my own life. But now, as I stepped into the courthouse, a place that had once felt cold and intimidating, I realized the reversal was complete. The lobby was bustling, people moving with purpose, lawyers in sharp suits, clients clutching folders like shields. I walked slowly, my eyes scanning the room, my chest tight, but steady. Every step felt deliberate, every breath measured. I was no longer the passive mother, quietly watching her family betray her. I was the one holding the truth. I was the one with evidence, with witnesses, with authority. As I entered the courtroom, Daniel and Rafiq were already there. Zara sat beside him, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. Their faces registered shock the moment they saw me. I didn't flinch. I didn't falter. I walked past them and took my seat, arranging my documents neatly before me. The judge called the session to order. The room quieted instantly. I could hear the subtle rustle of papers, the soft clearing of throats, the nervous tapping of shoes on the polished floor. My heart thumped in my ears, but it was a controlled rhythm, a deliberate pulse. Mr. Hassan leaned over and whispered, "They don't know what's coming." I nodded ever so slightly. When the lawyers for Daniel and Zara began their statements, claiming that I was acting irrationally, attempting to disrupt the family, trying to undermine the marriage, I sat silently. I didn't need to speak yet. Their words were empty without evidence. They were built on assumptions, on lies, on the hope that my silence would continue indefinitely. Then it was my turn. I stood slowly, arranging the documents in front of me. I began to speak, softly at first, but with increasing clarity and precision. "My name is Nana May," I said, my voice steady, calm, commanding. And this happened to me. Every head in the courtroom turned. Daniel's jaw tightened. Rafiq's hand twitched nervously. Zara's lips pressed together in a thin line. I began recounting everything. The locked gates at the farmhouse, the bank accounts removed, the forged digital signature, the papers taken from my bedroom, the voice note from my grandson, the DNA results. With each piece of evidence, I watched the color drain from their faces. The air in the room shifted. What had once been mine to protect now became my shield. I paused when I reached the DNA results. I felt the weight of the truth settle into the room, heavy and undeniable. "There is a child," I said, looking directly at Rafiq. "A child I did not know existed, hidden from me, concealed for years. And all of this was orchestrated to keep me in silence." The courtroom was silent. Not a whisper, not a breath, only the gravity of truth hanging thick in the air. Daniel tried to interrupt, but I raised a hand. "Please," I said softly, "let me finish. You will have your turn, but right now, the facts must be heard." I could feel the judge leaning slightly forward, interest peaked, focus absolute. I continued, detailing the timeline, the manipulations, the lies. I showed the smart doorbell footage. I played the voice note from my grandson. I displayed the forged digital signatures, annotated and verified by Mr. Hassan. Each revelation landed like a hammer, precise and unavoidable. Each pause, each careful glance around the room, added weight. I wasn't pleading. I wasn't begging. I was exposing the truth. By the time I finished, there was no room for doubt. Daniel slumped in his chair. Zara buried her face in her hands. Rafiq's shoulders sagged. The judge cleared his throat, finally breaking the silence. "Mrs. May, your evidence is compelling." "Mr. Hassan, is there anything further?" He shook his head. "Your Honor, the evidence is clear and verifiable. The actions taken by the family to remove Mrs. May from property ownership and to hide information from her were deliberate and documented." The reversal had begun. After the courtroom, the family could no longer pretend. The farmhouse, the accounts, the will, they were all under review. Each of their plans, each deception, was now being scrutinized legally and socially. Daniel tried to approach me later that evening, his expression a mixture of guilt, fear, and desperation. "Mom, please," he said quietly. We didn't mean. I know exactly what you meant, I interrupted softly. And now you have to face it. For the first time, he saw me as more than the quiet mother who had tolerated everything. He saw me as the force I had always been but had never allowed myself to be. Rafiq came next, attempting to justify years of secrecy. I listened quietly. Not a word of excuse could stand against the evidence. Not a single plea could erase what had already been done. Zara, of course, tried the last resort, public sympathy. She posted on social media, trying to sway opinion, painting herself as the victim of my vindication. But by now, the truth was already widespread. People had seen the evidence. The live stream of lies backfired, and the social media tide had turned. My grandson approached me that night. Nana, I'm glad you told everyone, he whispered. I hugged him tightly. Me too, I said. We can't hide the truth anymore. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace. Not because everything was perfect, not because the family was fixed, but because I had reclaimed my dignity. The power reversal was complete. The humiliation that had once crushed me had transformed into strength. The lies that had isolated me had now been exposed to the world. And the family that had thought they could erase me had learned, painfully and publicly, that I was neither silent nor invisible. But even as I left the courthouse that day, the air still felt charged. The legal battle was not over. The secrets they had kept, how deep did they go? What else had been hidden? The DNA revelation had opened doors, but I could already sense more waiting behind them, waiting for the right moment to surface. I smiled quietly to myself. Let it come. I was ready. For the first time in my life, I was untouchable, not because I was invincible, but because I was seen. The family could try to intimidate me, guilt me, manipulate me. But I had facts, evidence, and the courage that comes from finally refusing to be erased. And that courage, that quiet, unyielding resolve was unstoppable. My name is Nana May, and this happened to me. The courtroom was silent. Not the kind of quiet that comes from respect, but the brittle, fragile quiet that happens when everyone knows the truth is about to be revealed. Daniel, Zara, and Rafiq sat together, their eyes flicking between each other and me, searching for some sign that they could salvage the situation. There was none. I had dismantled the lies, piece by piece, exposing every act of betrayal, every hidden document, every whispered deception. Yet even as the immediate humiliation and reversal had been felt, something inside me whispered that this was not over, that the story still had one final secret. The judge cleared his throat, signaling that proceedings would resume. Mr. Hassan leaned over, giving me a brief nod. Then, a figure I had not expected, an unfamiliar lawyer, stood at the back of the courtroom. The man's presence sent a ripple through the room. He cleared his throat and walked to the center. Your Honor, he said, his voice deliberate and controlled, there is additional evidence regarding the ownership of the farmhouse and associated assets. Every head turned. Even Daniel and Zara shifted nervously in their seats. My pulse quickened. Mr. Hassan shot me a glance. His eyes said only one thing, this is it. The final truth. The lawyer handed the judge a thick folder. These documents were previously hidden. They were not disclosed during the initial filings. They pertain to an undisclosed agreement signed by the previous owners of the farmhouse that gives Mrs. Nana May irrevocable authority over all property, irrespective of subsequent wills or authorizations. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. I could feel the weight of this revelation settle. My authority, my rights, had been there all along. My family had tried to manipulate me, erase me, hide me, but the law itself, the documents they could not forge, were on my side. The judge examined the documents carefully, flipping pages with deliberate attention. He looked at me, then at Daniel. Mrs. May, he said slowly, it appears that your position as the legal owner of the farmhouse is indisputable. Any attempts to alter or remove your ownership without your consent are null and void. Daniel's face went pale. Zara's lips trembled. Rafiq leaned back in his chair, a faint sheen of sweat on his forehead. I stayed silent, letting the weight of the words sink in. There was no gloating, no flourish, just calm authority. They had tried to humiliate me, to erase me, to manipulate me. And now, every attempt had failed. The lawyer at the back, the one who had brought the hidden documents, stepped forward again. "Your Honor," he continued, "there is more. A bank alert was issued to the family estate last month, showing irregular transfers of funds into accounts under Mrs. May's name. Investigation indicates that these funds were appropriated by unauthorized signatures. We recommend an audit and restitution." I let the words settle in. My eyes scanned the courtroom. Daniel's hands trembled on the table. Zara looked like she might cry. Rafiq's mouth opened, then closed. It was the reversal in full effect. For weeks, I had been powerless, sidelined, humiliated. But now, the tide had completely turned. I had authority. I had proof. I had the law itself supporting me. The judge finally spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Given the evidence presented today, I rule in favor of Mrs. Nana May. Ownership of the farmhouse, associated assets, and full legal authority are restored to her. Any attempts by other parties to alter this status are hereby null and void." I exhaled slowly, letting the moment wash over me. Relief, yes, but not complacency. I knew better than to assume this was the end. Families like mine rarely change overnight. Secrets linger. Betrayals leave scars. And there was still one question I needed answered. How many more lies had been buried under years of false smiles and quiet obedience? The lawyer who had cleared his throat, the one with the hidden documents, approached me quietly. "Mrs. May," he said softly, "there is one final matter you should see. Something the family has kept even from each other." I raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" He handed me a small envelope, sealed, official. My hands trembled slightly as I opened it. Inside were letters, emails, and a series of financial documents. And one name stood out, a name I never expected. It was a secret. Not just a hidden child this time. Something bigger. Something that would shake the very foundation of the family further. I read through the documents, my pulse quickening. My husband, Rafiq, had been part of a series of undisclosed transactions, partnerships, and even property acquisitions that had been hidden under multiple shell accounts. And one of the accounts was directly linked to my grandson's education fund. My eyes widened. He planned to manipulate even the child's future, I whispered. The lawyer nodded. "Yes, and it appears these documents were deliberately hidden from both you and the rest of the family. Only revealed now because of your legal claim and the audit we initiated." A cold calm settled over me. I had fought for weeks, endured humiliation, exposed lies, and reclaimed my property. And now, I held knowledge that could protect the next generation. I looked at Daniel, Zara, and Rafiq. None of them met my gaze. They had tried to intimidate me, manipulate me, and erase me. Now they were silent. Power had shifted completely. Yet, even in the victory, I felt the weight of what remained unsaid. Secrets like these never vanish completely. They wait, quietly, like shadows, ready to resurface at the smallest crack in the armor. I stood, my hand steady, my voice calm but firm. "This is not over," I said, softly, almost to myself, not because I am vengeful, but because the truth must be complete. And the next chapter will demand it. The courtroom was silent again. My family sat frozen, realizing that this was no longer just a legal battle. This was a reckoning. The lawyer cleared his throat one last time, drawing everyone's attention. "Mrs. May," he said, "because of your actions today and your insistence on transparency, we can prevent further financial mismanagement and protect the interests of your family. But you will need to act swiftly to resolve these remaining issues." I nodded slowly. The victory was mine, but responsibility remained. The farmhouse, the legal authority, the exposed lies, all of it had been regained. But the family, the hidden accounts, the secrets, those threads still needed tending. I looked at my grandson, who had been quietly sitting near me the whole time, eyes wide and alert. I smiled, softly, reassuringly. "We'll fix this together," I whispered. And as I left the courtroom that day, a mix of relief and quiet vigilance settled over me. The battle for dignity, truth, and family was won, but the story, the real story, was far from over. Because just as the lawyer had said, one final secret lingered, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. and I would be ready. I had reclaimed my life, my authority, my voice, and no one would take it from me again.